Many people have compared a battle between James Bond and Jason Bourne, but few have actually analyzed their films. In this video, a categorical approach is taken to determine the superior franchise. It is clear that the Bourne movies influenced a change in the modern Daniel Craig Bond films. Releasing in 2002, the Bourne identity introduced more grounded, quick combat, and visceral techniques that were quickly mimicked. By the time Casino Royale released in 2006, the influence was evident. To conduct a quality comparison, Daniel Craig's 4 Bond films will be compared to the 4 Matt Damon Bourne films. Throughout this comparison, categories will be selected that both of these films do well. These categories will include Spycraft, protagonist, combat, stunts, themes, antagonists, and supporting characters. Whichever franchise wins the majority of these categories will be declared the winner. Spycraft is simply defined as the skills and techniques employed by spies. Both Bond and Bourne demonstrate exceptional proficiency in combat. They are both quite resourceful and they innovate in dire situations. Bond's true strength is in his interpersonal skills. He can pretend to play a role, often the high-class gambler like in Casino Royale, or an important contact in Quantum of Solace. Bond is exceptionally charming and frequently utilizes his attraction to gain information out of women. He charms a guest in Casino, seduces his target's wife to question her, and seduces another dead target's wife in Spectre. More simply, he is adept at reading people. He identifies traps and finds leads through simple conversations.
Ever since we sat down, you haven't stopped looking at your bodyguards. They're controlling you.
Bond also makes use of his trademark gadgets. These are significantly played down in Daniel Craig's version, but they still serve key roles in his missions. He bugs Le Chiffre's inhaler, uses an armed vehicle in Skyfall as an ambush, uses more car gadgets to escape a chase in Spectre, and throws his explosive watch to escape capture. Finally, Bond is bold. He is not afraid to make himself known in order to make a play. This is often risky, but allows significant progress to be made in various investigations. He uses this to flesh out his adversaries or initiate a confrontation in order to confront his target.
Welcome, Mr. Beach. Was that Bond? I'm a little confused.
Well, we wouldn't want that, would we?
Bourne's skill set is more situational and typically involves him evading detection. Bourne is exceptional at blending into crowds, recognizing those tailing him and using sleight of hand to plant objects in various situations. He is hyper-aware of CCTV and other surveillance measures. Bourne is also incredibly resourceful, especially as new situations arise. He takes police communications to aid his escape, and in Ultimatum, has Simon appear to meet with a decoy.
Okay, who's the guy in the blue hood? Is that his contact?
He uses Nikki to track Desh and lead him to Daniels. He creates makeshift explosions. He uses car alarms to create diversions. He even sneaks into Noah's office to steal intel, all while using his voice from a call.
Noah Wilson.
Bourne is able to interrogate other professionals to good effect. He is adept at finding creative routes to escape. Some of Bourne's genius comes from the simplicity of some of his actions. He calls the local police to interrupt the agency's backup. And perhaps the simplest, he asked the front desk of a hotel to call a guest to obtain a room number. Overall, Bond's advantage is based in interpersonal skills and with his gadgets. Bourne demonstrates frequent skill sets based on evasion. He is generally more resourceful than Bond and tends to plan his next move more often. Bourne demonstrates a broader skill set and is constantly aware of his next move. The same cannot always be said about Bond. Bond is certainly resourceful, but he tends to rely on simple combat in many situations. As a result, Bourne will win Spycraft.
This is where it started. It's where it ends.
Bond, at his core, displays exceptional ingenuity and persistence. When plans fail, he never gives up and is willing to take immense risks. We see this in his pursuit of the bomb maker in Casino Royale, in which he uses a bulldozer and runs directly through a wall. The bomb maker escapes, only for Bond to invade a foreign embassy, pivot his plans from capture to execution, while still escaping with evidence. However, this can also become a flaw. Bond is impatient and borders on reckless in certain situations. He openly gives his name when checking into a hotel when he is supposed to be undercover.
James Bond. You'll find the reservation on the beach.
He resorts to a possible assassination, or at least a brash approach, when he loses to Le Chiffre at poker. He refuses to stay in a rundown hotel and again risks blowing his cover. In Spectre, he plainly tells Oberhauser that he came to the compound to kill him.
I came here to kill you.
James resorts to drinking excessively. This is evident in Casino when he drinks to dull his pain and is again demonstrated in Skyfall.
Alcohol and substance addiction indicated. Oof.
Bond is accused of using women. This does occur to some extent, but Bond does not take advantage of them when he could have.
What? No. For one.
Bond's relationship with Vesper from Casino Royale is consistent throughout all of the films. It is evident that he feels significant guilt about her death. His enemies reference her loss on multiple occasions. Bond puts up significant defenses. He cannot trust others, he cannot sleep. He claims that he never considered ceasing to be an agent, but we, as the audience, cannot be so sure. When confronted with M's death, we see Bond reduced to tears. Despite having the opportunity to take revenge on those who have wronged him, Bond elects to leave them alive.
Is he still alive?
He is.
Bourne is introduced to us simplistically. He is an assassin that cannot remember any details about himself. We go through this discovery alongside him. From the beginning, the event that kicks everything off, Bourne's compassion is evident. He does not want to kill Wombosi due to his children being present. On his journey, he falls in love. He elects to cease his search for his origins and chooses to build a life with Marie. He simply wants out. Unfortunately, his adversaries do not let this stand. Bourne is pulled back into this former life through both self-defense and personal loss. He is told of his true identity, David Webb. We now begin to see the emergence of duality. David Webb desires his family, a wife, a father. Even though his adversaries are attempting to kill him, Bourne begins to show mercy to multiple people. He expresses remorse for all of those he has killed. The other side of his duality is Bourne. He seeks revenge for what has been taken from him. In Ultimatum, we catch glimpses of what led to become Bourne. He wanted to serve his country and thought that he was avenging the loss of his father. In Jason Bourne, he is still struggling with this duality. Even when he is off the grid, he is living a dangerous lifestyle. By the ultimate conclusion, he is still caught in this world. Bourne's duality provides an intriguing progression throughout the films. However, his loss of memory often results in serving as a plot device more than serving to build his character. Had Bourne chosen to spare Wombosi and not end up with amnesia, he likely would still have followed a similar path. His progression is essentially linear as we learn more of his history. Bond is simply a more flawed protagonist. We are more aware of his ego, his recklessness, and his stoic defense mechanisms. This makes him a more dynamic character. He clashes with his own allies, and we do not always know what to expect from him. We watch him battle with not only his enemies, but with his trauma and his guilt. As a result, Bond is the superior protagonist. Bond films feature combat that is often spectacular in nature. We see Bond fight while suspended on a crane, in a moving truck, while dangling from ropes, against a fighter jet, on top of a train, on thin ice, and on a helicopter. Bond's skill is relatively inconsistent. We see him quickly disarm others in Quantum, but significantly struggle in certain fights in Casino and Skyfall. This is typically expected when a protagonist meets a main antagonist, but we see him struggle with unnamed adversaries on occasion. Bond is very skilled with his firearm, typically shooting to incapacitate, but rarely missing when it counts. He is not afraid to brashly charge into fights due to his confidence in his ability. Bond's true strength is his use of the environment. He uses the reflection of a bottle, he uses situational advantages against henchmen, he shoots fire extinguishers to provide concealment to aid the escape of his allies. When captured on ice, he shoots through it to escape gunfire and fights underwater. In his fist fight with Hinks, he is able to use a rope to pull his much more powerful adversary out of the moving train. Interestingly, none of these actions are planned. He notices them in the moment and adapts. Bond is, however, rescued by circumstance or other characters on multiple occasions. This is occasionally poorly used, occurring just in time, which cheapens the authenticity of the fight. The combat of the Bond movies mainly gets its interest from its often extreme settings. Bourne is an expert at combat. We regularly see his ability with firearms and hand-to-hand. The Bourne movies also played a large role in popularizing the use of shaky cam. This was especially extreme in Supremacy. Like it or not, this technique adds to the intensity of a scene, but it can be overused on occasion. The majority of hand-to-hand exchanges are amazingly quick. The very first time we see him fight is in Identity, where he drops 2 police officers in seconds. Despite its speed, it doesn't feel unrealistic like many older action movies. The skill is evident and the impact is felt. When Bourne meets the Assets, we see more drawn-out exchanges. The first assassin involves Bourne using household items, such as a pen, to even the odds against a more prepared adversary. At the farmhouse, he is involved in a situation against a sniper at a significant disadvantage. It is intriguing to see Bourne use tactics such as shooting barrels to cause a diversion and using birds to flesh out his enemy's position. In Supremacy, Bourne rolls up a magazine to disrupt and influence a hand-to-hand exchange. We also see Bourne engage in covert combat. In Ultimatum, he is guiding a journalist to evade capture and sneaks through a crowd, gradually ambushing his pursuers and subduing them. He then fights Desh, another asset sent to kill him. Desh is extremely athletic and stronger than Bourne. Again, Bourne is resourceful, utilizing a book and a towel to disarm and eventually defeat him. In Jason Bourne, his final fight with the asset, who killed his father, involves a very technical fight. There are several submission attempts, which add to the personal nature of the altercation. Bourne is regularly involved in car chases, in which he is slamming into other vehicles and being shot at while he attempts to escape. We see him veer through cramped alleyways and deploy various defensive driving techniques to escape. Bond certainly carries the more spectacular combat scenes, but Bourne's combat is more grounded, carries more weight, and demonstrates more technical skill. Bond gets lucky at times, which devalues the stakes of the exchanges, because the luck is simply too well timed and occurs just before he meets his demise. The biggest difference, however, is tactics. Bourne's combat involves more strategy, which reminds us that we are truly watching an expert. As previously mentioned, Bond movies place the action in spectacular situations. Naturally, this lends itself to the opportunity to display complex stunts. Casino's parkour chase not only looks amazing, but we learn about Bond's character traits. He is clearly less skilled than his target, but he will run through walls and jump extreme distances anyway. Casino also provides with a visceral car crash that catches us by surprise and keeps us on edge. We witness amazing stunts during other chases, with Bond riding over boats and jumping onto moving vehicles. In Skyfall, we witness Bond leap off of a construction vehicle after tearing a hole into a moving train. In Spectre, we see him escape a collapsing building and even lose the wings of his plane as he is in pursuit. Bourne's stunts are more grounded. They are less spectacular, but they fit more accurately in the nature of the film. Bourne is seen scaling buildings to evade capture, shooting while maneuvering his car during chases, jumping through rooftops and windows, driving off of a roof, and colliding with his adversaries in various vehicles. Bourne's single most interesting stunt is when he places another under him and shoots another adversary as he falls down the center of a stairwell. This demonstrates both his ability and his innovation. Bond surely has the more complicated and dynamic stunts. They serve to complement the action and create an epic scope for each film. Bourne stunts serve to work a bit better to avoid breaking one's immersion in the grounded nature. However, Bond stunts do fit with the character's ego and recklessness. They come close to the line of being too exaggerated, but they don't cross it. The result is watching some impressive sequences that still fit the story. As a result, Bond has stunts.
Made weak by time.
Look at what they make you
and
give.
Fate, but strong in will.
Bond's themes feature some consistency throughout each film, but they also introduce new themes along the way. Casino largely involves Bond's character and others' perception of it. It introduces us to Bond's perseverance, which is seen by some as recklessness. M and Vesper both criticize Bond's arrogance, but Bond sees it as confidence. Initially, Bond's arrogance is seen as problematic. He loses at the poker game and insists on buying back in. His allies will not help him due to this perception.
You lost because of your ego. And that same ego can't take it.
However, Felix stakes him, and Bond is eventually able to prove that he could, in fact, beat Le Chiffre. Bond's confidence played a large role in his success. However, this confidence takes a hit when he is betrayed by Vesper and unable to save her. Quantum's primary theme picks up with Bond struggling to forgive himself for failing to save Vesper. He initially seeks revenge, but adapts throughout his journey. Green even uses this against him,
saying that everything he touches seems to wither and die.
Quantum concludes with Bond causing a lot of collateral damage and recognizing the cost of revenge. He drops Vesper's necklace, leaving her behind, moving on. Skyfall introduces an interesting amount of additional themes. M does not give Bond the chance to finish the mission, introducing doubt into his abilities.
Take the bloody shot!
There is an underlying question of human-gathered intelligence now being outdated. Parallel with this, Bond's age is called into question. Being an agent is a young man's game. This reminds us of the theme of Bond's perseverance, no matter the cost. Skyfall concludes with M leaving Bond her desk decoration.
Maybe it was her way of telling you to take a desk job.
Just the opposite.
Supporting him staying in the field. Spectre continues the theme of field agents becoming outdated in favor of electronically gathered surveillance. Mallory points out,
A license to kill is also a license not to kill.
there is no substitute for one's judgment. Bond exemplifies Mallory's point at the conclusion of the film. Bourne's theme is consistently concerned with discovering who Jason Bourne is. Identity is straightforward. Bourne is trying to discover what he was, but not who he was. He is told that he is malfunctioning and that he has failed his purpose. Bourne seeks simply to understand,
Why are you trying to kill me?
but ultimately creates his own path, finding Marie and seemingly moving on to a calm life. Supremacy opens with Marie reminding Bourne that he has a choice in his
We don't have a choice.
Yes, you do.
This is soon wavered when Marie is killed. Bourne cannot escape this life. He chooses to seek revenge. Along the way, we see a dichotomy between Bourne's mercy, as he often spares the lives of others, and Abbott's ruthlessness, killing his own people. Bourne remembers Marie's words and spares the assassin sent to kill him. To solidify this theme, Bourne tells Nesky's daughter that he killed her parents. He is able to own his past and turn away from seeking revenge. Ultimatum forces Bourne to confront the danger that he puts people in. Marie's brother reminds him of this.
I know this is gonna end this way.
Bourne continues to show mercy. He lets yet another assassin live after trying to kill him. A parallel is drawn between the asset in Ultimatum and the asset in Identity.
Look at what they make you give.
Look at whatever you give.
In Jason Bourne, Bourne returns to seeking answers about himself. Rather than looking at what he was, he looks at who he was. He examines his life with his father and his motivations for joining the CIA. Bourne learns of the agency's betrayal of his father and seeks to dismantle everything that they built. Bourne has embraced this life, but on his own terms. Jason Bourne also raises a sub-theme of personal rights versus public safety.
Way past the encryption.
And when that's not enough, you'll want something new.
An interesting parallel to Bourne's essential creation. He was stripped of his humanity to serve the perceived safety of his country. Bond features interesting and varied themes, but they are often placed aside to serve another as each film progresses. Casino and Quantum are tightly related, but there is less cohesion between Skyfall and Spectre. Counterintuitively, the multiple sub-themes occasionally detract from one more powerful overarching theme. The Bourne films do just that. They focus more tightly on a single overarching theme. His constant search for his true identity, who he wants to be and how it fits in his world, creates a deeper thematic experience throughout each film. As a result, Bourne will take theme.
It's always been me, the author of all your pain.
Craig's Bond films feature unique and memorable antagonists with interesting variations from film to film. In Casino, it's Le Chiffre, a calculating master of the odds.
I have 2 pound, you have a 17.4% chance of making it straight.
This is someone who isn't himself physically imposing to Bond, but he has considerable resources. We initially see Bond oppose him in poker. We see them read each other. He plays dirty, he fakes his tell, and he poisons Bond. Even after losing, he has Bond captured and tortures him. Despite there never being any direct confrontation, Le Chiffre and Bond compete mentally. Quantum is the weakest antagonist of these films. Dominic Green has large, overarching plans to overthrow governments and is working with the CIA. He knows Bond's troubled past and brings it up against him. Green fails to ever truly challenge Bond. There is a final fight, but it hardly matches the same intensity. Skyfall features the amazing Silva, a former MI6 agent who is seeking payback against M. He represents a direct threat to Bond, leading his own assaults. He has many soldiers at his disposal, hacks into their systems, and perfectly plans escapes against Bond. He is especially interesting because M indicates that he was acting beyond his brief, and she traded him for imprisoned agents. This is similar to some of the actions Bond himself had taken. There are multiple conversations in which Silva shows Bond that he cannot trust M, that she doesn't care, attempting to get him to see his perspective.
Immediate suspension from service advised. What is this if not betrayal? She sent you off to me knowing you're not ready, knowing you would likely die. Mommy was very bad.
Ultimately, Silva does kill M, albeit not as directly as he wanted. He has a very emotional confrontation with her, showing how damaged he truly was. Spectre is a reboot of the most classic Bond villain, Blofeld. This is combined with a secondary, physically imposing assassin named Hinks. Blofeld is the leader of an immense shadow organization and has immense resources. He knows all about Bond. He psychologically torments Bond. He explains how he has been involved in all of the deaths of the women in his life.
Or did you think it was coincidence that all the women in your life ended up dead?
He straps Bond to a chair and slowly drills his brain as a method of causing him to forget Madeline's face, a unique and disturbing form of torture. There is also an interesting history between the two. Bond was raised by Blofeld's father. He became jealous and subsequently killed him.
Did you know that it was my father who helped him through this difficult time?
Blofeld is also adaptable. After Bond's escape, he is able to pivot and capture Madeline, leading Bond through a maze designed to make him face a difficult decision. Bourne's villains follow a very tight formula. There is a director leading the search to kill Bourne, and there are the assets activated to pull the trigger. Conklin is relatively simple. He wants to cover his own tracks and elects to eliminate Bourne. He gives him insight into his malfunctioning and is ultimately taken out by his own people. Supremacy features Ward Abbott, a shadier version of Conklin who was his superior. Abbott fills the same role and runs counter to Landy's attempts to understand Bourne. Supremacy features a more central focus on one particular asset, Kirill. He is the one who shoots and kills Marie. He shoots Bourne and comes close to killing him, only to ultimately lose, at which point he is spared by Bourne. Bourne has a conversation with Abbott, gaining a confession, resulting in Abbott committing suicide. Ultimatum sees Noah fill the role of the director. He believes Bourne is the source of a leak and ordered him killed. Noah also plans to frame Landy for the mistakes made in the past programs. He frequently opposes Landy and actively blocks her involvement. He orders Nikki to be killed without a second thought. As usual, another asset is involved. He is spared by Bourne and spares him in return. In Jason Bourne, it is director Dewey, filling yet another very similar role as all of his predecessors. Jason Bourne's true interest is the asset sent to kill him. This is the same man who killed his father. This reintroduces the motive of revenge, but the asset is much more malicious and removes some of the cost of the motive. Antagonists are one of Bond's true specialties. They are varied, interesting, and they challenge Bond in very different ways. Bourne's antagonists are remarkably similar and follow the exact same format in each movie. This category belongs to 007.
Because this isn't what I signed up for.
I want you to know that if all that was left of you was your smile.
Bond has quite an array of supporting characters. Some are minor, while some play an essential role in each film. In Casino, M is introduced as someone who is highly critical of Bond. She is displeased with his recklessness and his body count.
Quite the body count you're stacking up.
In addition, Felix and Mathis mostly exist to serve the plot. It is Vesper who is the main support. Vesper holds the same critiques as M. She is Bond's counter. She points to his recklessness and relates it to his ego. She represents Bond's limitation. She controls the money and, by extension, Bond's reach. After Bond loses, she accuses his ego of being unable to take it. She cuts him off.
You lost because of your ego, and that same ego can't take it.
Vesper demonstrates a dynamic arc. She is able to read and limit Bond. However, when she experiences violence, she is visibly shaken and turns to Bond for comfort. This leads her to protect Bond over the course of her future betrayal. This is illustrated when she comes to his rescue when he is poisoned, and sparing him over the course of her plot. Vesper's end is especially emotional. She betrays Bond, steals his money, but finds herself in danger. Due to her guilt, she lets herself fall. In the end, we learn that Bond is left alive because Vesper made a deal for his life. Vesper's presence profoundly affects Bond throughout multiple future interactions and leaves the audience with the same sense of dread. Quantum features primarily Mathis, Camille, and M. We learn that Bond wronged Mathis by falsely concluding he was double-crossed. Bond involves Mathis in his mission only to lead him to his death. We feel for the loss of Mathis, as Bond has once again wronged him. Rather than blaming Bond, Mathis stays true and tells Bond exactly what he needs to overcome his grief.
Vesper, she gave everything for you. Forgive her. Forgive yourself.
M continues to struggle with trusting Bond. She accuses him of acting out of rage and blames him for the death of another agent. Despite this accusation, she decides to trust him. Camille demonstrates a motive that aligns with Bond's. She seeks revenge on a general who killed her family. She suffered her own trauma, which we see arise, similar to Bond, and she is very capable in her own right. While she may not be as complex as Vesper, she shows us an interesting parallel to 007. Skyfall continues with the supporting role of M and introduces Mallory, Q, and Kincaid, who cared for Bond as a child. Kincaid provides a brief look into his upbringing, but it is M who really shines in this film. Rather than the previous focus of M's trust in Bond, we now see Bond wrestle with trusting her. He disagrees with her orders for Eve to shoot, he dislikes her orders for him to leave a fallen agent, and he even learns that she cleared him despite failing all of his tests. We also see M display similar stoicism when confronted with Silva. She is unwavered and doesn't think twice about causing Silva so much pain. In the meantime, Mallory serves the theme of the film, the value of the aging agent. He comes in to oversee the 00 program and possibly remove M, but ends up saving her and displaying his own abilities. Without the supporting role of M in Skyfall, the climax would have no effect. We see M fall, and for the first time, we see Bond truly break. We witness their connection. Although it was strained, it was pure, and we feel this loss. Spectre again features Mallory, gives Moneypenny a more prominent role, and has Madeline fill the co-lead. Moneypenny has evolved into a romantic interest as well as a capable field agent. Her and Q remain loyal to Bond. Mallory now follows a theme of the film, the importance of human intelligence in the field. We see him not only fight directly, but also bureaucratically, explaining the importance of human judgment from his own experience. Madeline is the smart and capable daughter of Mr. White, who is familiar with Spectre. She displays her own struggles with the trauma of her father's involvement in something so terrible. However, she sees that her father always cared for her and struggles with Bond's role against him. Despite these conflicts, she falls in love with Bond, but knows she cannot continue to live this life. This presents Bond with an important decision. Does he remain or does he go with her?
I can't go back to this life.
The Bourne Identity primarily features Marie and Nikki as supporting characters. Marie accompanies Bourne throughout virtually his entire voyage and plays a significant role in his rediscovery of who he is. She displays a good amount of fear as she is placed in high-stress and dangerous situations. She provides a good perspective as an untrained individual for Bourne to explain his skill set. Nikki is introduced and plays a smaller role, but this serves to become more prominent in the future. In Supremacy, Marie has been helping Bourne psychologically recover from his amnesia and subsequent trauma. She has reinforced his morality and a sense of purpose. Her death is a massive conduit for everything that transpires. Pamela Landy is introduced as someone who is seeking the truth behind the situation with Bourne. She represents what the CIA should be. She is not trying to cover loose ends. She is not serving an agenda. She simply wants to figure out what happened. She is in contrast to Abbott, who is her opposite on all fronts. When Landy learns more of the underlying motives of others, she lightly allies with Bourne and tells him his real name. Ultimatum features Landy picking up where she left off. She is now more willing to directly help Bourne. Simon Ross is introduced as an investigative reporter who begins to uncover details of Blackbriar. He represents the public's interest. In addition to his actions, we see him struggle with understanding the danger of his situation. We see him panic and make many mistakes. Although these are small details, they help to show just how good Bourne really is. Nikki becomes a larger player and directly helps Bourne. Landy backs her, but she still becomes a target.
This is about Daniels, not Nikki!
We see Nikki become an emotional support and align with Bourne. At its conclusion, Landy exposes files and seemingly exonerates Bourne. Jason Bourne adds some more intriguing support with Lee, a highly ambitious CIA head, and Aaron, a very realistic tech magnate whose ability to gather data is now highly sought by the CIA. Nikki is now on her own. She has gone farther against the CIA than Bourne ever did. Rather than simply trying to survive, she seeks to expose them.
The Black Ops files, we're putting them online.
She pulls Bourne back, this time needing his help, but he is unable to save her. Lee is especially interesting because she represents the new wave of agent. She helps Bourne, but only for her own interests.
You and I have different reasons, but we both want Dewey gone.
She ultimately betrays her own boss in order to gain more power. She is eventually caught saying that she would also be willing to put Bourne down if he doesn't support her. Bond's supporting characters are more varied. There are many relationships between other agents, love interests, and third parties. Bond's supporting characters often feature more depth. While Marie and Landy are complicated and feature many traits, there are few supports who can rival that of Bond's presence of M, Vesper, or Madeline. Bourne's relationships with his supporting characters are simple. They are allies or they're against him. Many of Bond's character motives are uncertain, feature complex trauma histories, or have their own struggles, which far outweigh that of Bourne's.